I want you to take a second and just imagine your last vacation.
Okay, yeah.
Think about the hotel you booked, the beaches you walked on, those little local cafes where you grabbed your morning coffee.
Right.
Now, ask yourself a brutally honest question. Did you leave that destination exactly as you found it? Or, and this is the real kicker here, did your visit actually make the place better?
I mean, that is a slightly uncomfortable question for anyone who really loves to travel.
Oh, totally.
Because, the standard expectation for a good tourist is essentially just to be invisible. We're taught to take only pictures and leave only footprints.
Right, right.
We considered this massive win if we just managed not to completely ruin the place we're visiting.
Yeah, it's this basic baseline of do no harm. But today, we are completely flipping that script.
You really are.
We're taking a deep dive into this fascinating academic chapter. It's titled Regenerative Tourism in Karaikal, A Pathway to Sustainable Growth and Cultural Revival by Janisha Jain, and it's published by IGI Global.
A really incredible piece of research.
It really is. And our mission for this deep dive is to explore how this quiet, largely undiscovered coastal enclave in India is serving as the ultimate blueprint for the future of travel. We are unpacking this massive leap from just sustainable tourism to regenerative tourism and discovering how travel can actually heal a destination rather than just, consume it.
And honestly, whether you are a professional prepping for a meeting on corporate sustainability or, a student of urban planning, or even just someone planning your next getaway, this framework is going to permanently alter how you view your footprint in the world.
Oh, 100%.
The shift here is profound. We're moving from a mindset of mitigation, just doing less bad, to a mindset of active restoration.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because to really understand why modern tourism needs such a drastic overhaul, we first need to look at a place that hasn't been completely overwhelmed by it yet.
Right, which is rare.
Very rare. And the source material points us to this fascinating hidden gem, Karaikal.
So, to understand Karaikal, you really have to picture its context within the Union Territory of Puducherry in India. Because most people, when they hear Puducherry, they instantly visualize the capital city.
Right, the French Quarter.
Exactly. They picture the bustling French Quarter, the vibrant promenades, Oroville, and all that heavy commercial tourism. And, I mean, it is undeniably beautiful, but the foot traffic is just relentless.
Yeah. But meanwhile, Karaikal is its geographically disconnected sister.
Yes.
Text notes it's located about 16 kilometers north of Nagapattinam, down in Tamil Nadu. It's this quiet, 157 square kilometer coastal town.
So totally different vibe.
Completely. Instead of bustling, crowded cafes, you have this deep coastal serenity. It's primarily known for the Navagraha, which is this incredible 9-planet pilgrimage circuit alongside the Karaikal Amayar temple.
Wow.
And because it has remained slightly off the beaten path, it just hasn't experienced that massive environmental and cultural degradation that usually comes with mass tourism.
Which is exactly why it's so important. That lack of degradation makes it the perfect blank canvas to experiment with regenerative tourism.
Right.
But to appreciate what regenerative actually means in practice, we kind of have to look back at the evolution of eco-travel.
Okay, lay it on us.
So the concept of sustainable tourism really got its formal definition way back in the 1987 Brundtland Report.
1987, wow.
Yeah, it's been around. That document defines sustainable development as, meeting present needs without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own.
So on paper, that sounds perfectly reasonable, but if I'm understanding the mechanics of this correctly, sustainable tourism is essentially like paying your rent on time so you don't get evicted.
That's a great way to put it.
Right, like you are just maintaining the status quo so the house doesn't fall apart.
Exactly.
But regenerative tourism, based on Jane's research, seems to be like fixing the leaky plumbing, upgrading the electrical grid, and planting a beautiful garden for the landlord. You're leaving the property fundamentally better than when you arrived.
Yes, exactly.
I have to admit, though, I'm struggling with the physics of this. Like, how can an industry that relies on carbon-heavy airplanes, massive resorts, and influxes of crowds actually fix a physical place? It just feels totally counterintuitive.
What's fascinating here is that regenerative tourism reframes the tourist not as a consumer of resources, but as an active participant in an ecosystem's healing process.
Okay, how so?
Well, it goes far beyond simply asking a hotel to, wash your towels less often to save water.
Right, the little signs in the bathroom.
Exactly. Those do almost nothing in the grand scheme. The real mechanism relies on a high-value, low-impact economic model. The actual financial machinery of tourism, so the fees, the taxes, the local spending, is directly and intentionally funneled into restoring ecosystems and reversing historical damage.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it requires building a truly reciprocal relationship between the visitor and the destination.
And Karaikal is a place that desperately needs that specific type of active healing because, I mean, you can't save a local culture if the physical land it sits on is quite literally washing away into the
It's
ocean.
a very real threat.
Yeah. The geography of this town puts it squarely on the front lines of climate vulnerability.
The environmental tightrope this town is walking is incredibly precarious. Karaikal sits right in the deltaic region of the Kaveri River, and the land is traversed by 7 different estuary arms.
Which means lots of water.
Lots of water.
Mm.
And more importantly, it is severely low-lying. We're talking generally sitting just 2 to 9 meters above sea level.
Which is crazy. Because it sits at such a low elevation, the town has to rely on this massive, intricate network of surface water to manage its hydrology. The text mentions there are 549 tanks and ponds in this relatively small district, plus 98 canals.
That's a huge network.
Yeah. And this surface flow system acts as a physical bulwark against the ocean.
But that bulwark is actively cracking under modern ecological pressures. Salinity intrusion is probably one of the most urgent threats.
Salinity intrusion meaning salt water getting in.
Exactly. When salt water from the ocean bleeds into the freshwater supply, it creates this cascade of systemic failures. In Karaikal, the groundwater table is remarkably shallow-like, only 20 to 30 feet deep.
Oh, man.
So when that salt water intrudes, it contaminates the drinking water and completely ruins the agricultural soil.
Which is a huge problem.
Right, because agriculture happens to be the backbone of the local economy. And then you add severe coastal erosion to the mix, along with a dangerously low forest cover. It's only at 9.66%, and the survival of the town becomes a real existential question.
And here's a detail from the source material that genuinely surprised me. You would think a low-lying coastal region in India would be protected by, massive, sprawling mangrove forests.
You hope so.
Right? But according to Jane's research, despite being right on the coast, Karaikal has absolutely no large old-growth mangrove trees left.
It's devastating.
None. What they have is merely this young, regenerating 32.3 hectare population. And we know from environmental science that mangroves are nature's ultimate shock absorbers.
They really are.
Their dense root systems hold the land together against coastal erosion and storm surges.
Yeah, and a coastal town without mangroves is essentially a fortress without walls. It is incredibly vulnerable to just being swallowed by the sea.
Wow.
And this is where the mechanics of the regenerative solution step in to actually alter the town's trajectory. Because in a conventional tourism model, a developer might look at those remaining wetlands, pave them over, and build a mega resort with ocean views.
Right, completely destroying whatever natural defenses are left.
Exactly. But the regenerative model fundamentally changes the economic incentive structure.
Okay, I want to push back on that incentive structure for a second because the idea of tourists funding mangrove planting sounds lovely in a textbook. But realistically, a multinational hotel developer with deep pockets wants that prime oceanfront real estate. How does a local ecotourism initiative actually win a bidding war against a developer who promises, immediate tax revenue to the local government? Like, how does regenerative tourism win the economic fight on the ground?
That is the big question. And it wins by proving long-term economic resilience over short-term extraction.
Okay.
The mechanism involves changing local policy to capture tourism revenue directly. So instead of a multinational corporation extracting profits out of the region, regenerative tourism utilizes community land trusts and local zoning laws to keep the land in local hands.
Oh, I see.
So a tourist pays a premium for an eco-lodge experience, and a portion of that nightly fee is legally earmarked for afforestation programs. The financial model proves to the local government that a living, expanding 32-hectare mangrove forest protecting the town generates more sustainable year-over-year revenue through specialized ecotourism than a single hotel that frankly might be underwater in 20 years.
Oh, wow, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. The dollars are forcibly looped back into the environment.
Exactly.
And the source also highlights the restoration of what they call sacred groves. These are small patches of forest that locals have preserved for centuries, often for spiritual and medicinal purposes. And regenerative tourism acts as the capital engine to protect and expand these biodiversity hotspots.
Because the natural environment isn't the only thing facing erosion here. If the land itself is giving way to the ocean, everything built on top of it is living on borrowed time.
That's a scary thought.
Yeah, the cultural and architectural fabric of Karaikal is at severe risk of being washed away, both by climate change and just the pressures of unplanned urbanization.
And the architectural tapestry of this region is incredible. It would be a devastating loss.
Okay.
The chapter dives deep into the Indo-French heritage, specifically focusing on the homes of the Karaikal Muslim trading community.
Oh, yeah, these are fascinating.
These were highly successful, globally connected merchants who established themselves in Karaikal long before the French arrived in 1739.
And their global maritime exposure, combined with their deep local roots, created an architectural vernacular that is entirely unique.
Yeah.
It is a distinct fusion that diverges sharply even from the famous, well-preserved heritage buildings you see up north in Puducherry.
I just found the descriptions of these specific historic homes like Qadr Mahal and Bashir's house absolutely fascinating
Yeah.
because on the inside, the layout is perfectly adapted to the brutal tropical climate and traditional Tamil social customs.
Right. They utilize the mutrum, which is this inward-facing central courtyard.
Mm-hmm.
Mechanically, it acts as a natural wind catcher to cool the house,
Mm-hmm.
while also serving as the private social hub for the family.
And then they also feature the thinai, which are these raised entrance platforms on the exterior where residents can sit, catch the evening breeze, and socialize with neighbors passing by on the street.
It's brilliant.
It's this deeply traditional indigenous design. But then you step back and look at the outside facades of these same homes, and it's a sudden explosion of French neoclassical, Baroque, and Rococo cornices and sculpted details.
It's such a wild mix.
Right, I'm picturing this tropical Indian courtyard house that looks like it was plucked out of a Parisian boulevard on the outside.
It really serves as a stunning physical manifestation of history.
Yeah.
You have native climate adaptation, Islamic cultural tradition, and European colonial aesthetics all just coexisting and functioning within a single structure.
Which naturally leads me to a massive question. If these buildings are so historically significant, why aren't they protected?
Yeah.
Like, if this town isn't a designated UNESCO World Heritage Site, what is stopping a developer from just bulldozing a beautiful 200-year-old hybrid home to pour concrete for a generic strip mall or a budget hotel?
And that regulatory gap is the town's critical vulnerability right now.
Yeah.
India does have robust national heritage laws. The primary one is the AMASR Act of 1958, which stands for the Ancient Monuments and Archaeological Sites and Remains Act.
But does that act apply to Karaikal at all?
It does, but its scope is really limited.
Yeah.
The AMASR Act does a phenomenal job of protecting massive ancient structures. So, for example, the Kambaresvara Temple and the Svayambhuvanatha Swami Temple in Karaikal are protected monuments maintained by the Archaeological Survey of India.
Okay, so the big temples are safe.
Right. The problem is that the legislation is generally designed for grand singular monuments. It is not designed to protect everyday historic residences or the broader, interconnected urban fabric of a neighborhood.
So everyday heritage homes simply slip through the cracks of the bureaucracy.
Exactly.
There are no specific targeted heritage guidelines preventing someone from demolishing Qadr Mahal simply because the land it sits on is valuable.
And this is, again, where the mechanics of regenerative tourism provide a tangible solution.
Yeah.
Without government protection, you have to create a financial incentive for preservation. If a local community realizes that mindful, high-spending travelers are traveling thousands of miles specifically to experience this unique Indo-French architecture, the calculus changes entirely. Those buildings suddenly possess immense economic value in their intact state.
Oh, so it creates a localized market for adaptive reuse.
Exactly.
Instead of selling the family home to an outside hotel conglomerate, a local family might secure funding to restore their historic home, preserving the mutrum and the thinai.
Yeah.
They turn it into a boutique eco-stay and run specialized heritage walks. The cultural identity is validated, and the profit margin goes directly into the pockets of the local residents rather than like leaking out to a corporate headquarters in another country.
You are effectively turning heritage preservation from a costly burden into a viable, lucrative livelihood. But knowing the threats and understanding the theory is one thing. How a region actually implements this complex model on the ground is another.
Right, theory versus practice.
Exactly. To see the mechanics in action, we can look to neighboring pioneers who are already mapping out the roadmap to regeneration.
Yeah, the source provides a very compelling case study with the state of Goa. Now, Goa is heavily associated with massive beach parties and mass tourism, But they are apparently pivoting hard.
They really are. Goa recently became India's first state to officially launch a comprehensive regenerative tourism model.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and the mechanics of their pivot are what make it so interesting. They introduced the Ekadasha Tirtha initiative, which deliberately shifts focus away from the crowded beaches and redirects tourist flow toward 11 distinct spiritual and cultural sites inland.
Smart.
They are actively intertwining spirituality, indigenous practices, and conscious travel to redistribute wealth.
And the text mentions their promotion of the Chikal Kalo Mud Festival, but how does promoting a mud festival actually change the economic structure of the state?
It changes the flow of money. Historically, a tourist in Goa might spend their entire budget at an international beach resort. The Chikal Festival celebrates Goa's agricultural heritage. So by promoting this, the state draws tourists into the rural heartland. Those tourists now pay local farmers for farm stays, they buy food from local vendors, and they participate in the authentic historical rhythms of the state.
Oh, I see.
The wealth is distributed directly to the agricultural sector, which strengthens the local economy and reduces reliance on the saturated coast.
So applying that exact blueprint directly to Karaikal, the visitor experience will look completely different than a standard vacation.
Completely different.
A regenerative Karaikal wouldn't feature tourists isolated in massive concrete resorts. It involves tourists staying in those restored Maraikar heritage homes. It involves paying for guided tours led by local youth through the newly regenerating mangrove forests.
And if we connect this to the bigger picture, it also involves agritourism. Visitors wouldn't just eat at a generic restaurant, they would visit the organic farms. They might pay to learn about the local agricultural practices, maybe helping with the harvest, and then eating authentic masala puri and Karaikal biryani on the very land that grew the ingredients.
When you connect these initiatives to the broader economic picture, you really start to see the profound lifeline this provides for the local population. Because Jane's research points out a very concerning trend for Karaikal-educated youth are migrating away from the town because there is a severe lack of suitable employment opportunities.
Yeah, brain drain is a massive issue for secondary cities. The talent leaves because the local economy just cannot sustain their ambitions.
Exactly.
But regenerative tourism attacks this problem by transforming locals into entrepreneurs. It requires high-quality jobs in heritage management, ecotourism guiding, organic farming logistics, and sustainable hospitality management. Furthermore, the model creates the financial demand necessary to revive lost traditional crafts.
And the detail about the stonemasons really stood out to me.
Oh yeah, that's a great point.
The text mentioned that Karaikal historically produced these highly skilled stonemasons. They were apparently so renowned for their craftsmanship that they were sought after to help build Bengaluru's massive Vidhan Sudha building as late as 1951.
Incredible.
But without demand, those skills just fade away. Regenerative tourism could create the financial backing required to revive that craftsmanship for all these new restoration projects. The traveler's money directly funds the resurrection of a dying art form.
And that dynamic is the absolute crux of the regenerative model. It ensures that the machinery of the tourism economy works for the destination, rather than the destination sacrificing itself for the tourism economy. It balances the social, political, economic, cultural, environmental, and spiritual needs of a place into one cohesive, thriving system that sustains itself indefinitely.
So what does this all mean for you, the listener, the next time you pack your bags? If we zoom out and look at everything we've uncovered today from Janisha Jain's research, regenerative tourism represents a vital evolution. We are moving from the passive goal of doing less harm to the active mandate of doing more good. It's recognizing that when you travel, your presence and your money act as catalysts. Historically, mass tourism has functioned kind of like a parasite, extracting the beauty of a place until the host is just drained. But regenerative tourism asks us to function more like pollinators, visiting a destination, sustaining ourselves, but leaving behind the seeds for local youth retention, heritage restoration, and mangrove afforestation.
It is a really powerful and necessary reframing of our role as visitors on this planet. However, it does leave us with a rather complex challenge to ponder as this model grows.
Okay, what's that?
Well, the future of saving vulnerable destinations like Karaikal relies entirely on this high-value, low-impact framework. Mechanically, that means capping tourist numbers, increasing fees, and shifting to higher-cost, highly curated regenerative
Oh,
experiences.
I see where this is going.
Right, if we price out the masses in order to save the environment, does travel inherently become a privilege reserved only for the wealthy?
Wow. That is a heavy implication.
It really is. If the financial barrier to entry becomes too high, what happens to the democratization of travel? Is there a structural way to build a regenerative model so that anyone on any budget can afford to be a steward of the places they visit? Or will truly sustainable travel inevitably become an exclusive luxury good?
That is a phenomenal question and definitely one to chew on the next time you are, you know, booking a flight, picking a hotel, or planning a road trip. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. We hope this conversation has given you some powerful, practical knowledge to apply to your own life and your own travels. Until next time, keep questioning the systems around you, keep learning, and remember the next time you're walking on that vacation beach, think about exactly how you plan to leave the sand a little better than you found it.